So what are the strongest cards that have been revealed so far in the Set 2 spoilers? These cards are all going to heavily increase the power of your decks, spice up your decks, and maybe even create whole new decks that revolve around them. I'm so excited for all of these previews. Let's get into it and talk about these cards. I'm going to go over what I think the best card previewed so far is per aspect color, and then also give an honorable mention and explain why I think they're the strongest. So the colored aspect that we're going to start out here first with is the color that I think has gotten the most strong cards, to be honest with you. Is actually difficult to narrow it down with yellow to decide what I think is the two strongest cards previewed so far. But I'm going to have to give the one slot to McClunky. And the reason I'm going to give this card the number one slot is something I'm calling the McClunky Macarena, which goes something like this. With McClunky, for one resource, you're going to be able to bounce one of your own units, and if it's an underworld unit, you're going to deal 3 damage. That makes McClunky the most cost-efficient damage and removal card in the game. One resource for 3 damage. Huge. But not only that, this card is going to be more about the combos that you can do with your own cards. Namely, Millennium Falcon and Fett's Fire Spray is going to allow you to double up on damage. McClunky is going to become a 1 resource deal 5 to 8 damage card. This card is borderline busted, and I think it's going to be in a ton of yellow decks. My honorable mention for yellow is going to go to the L337 droid. This was difficult to choose my honorable mention. However, I think that this droid is going to be a namesake in the meta. We are getting a ton of capture cards. We've seen the Mandalorian rifle. We've seen that amazing other yellow capture event that almost made it to my honorable mention. However, I just think that this droid, for its smuggle cost of only 4, having it sit in your resource line and be able to answer a capture effect at any point in the game. A lot of decks are going to be slotting this in. A couple of these just because it's an instant resource and then instant answer to any capture card in the game for only 4 resource. Not only are you going to get the unit back that was captured, but you're also going to have a 2/2 body on the board just to help you out. The fact that this is just only 4 cost, I just think it's such a strong card. You know, your opponent is going to be spending a fair amount of resource to capture one of your cards, and then you instantly responding to this, negating that effect, and then getting an additional body on the board. Yeah, this is definitely going to be in a lot of decks. So the number one card for the red aspect that I think is going to just be incredibly powerful and in a ton of decks is Wrecker. This guy is overstated for its cost, which is something that I'm going to be saying a lot in this video. It's 6 cost for a 6/7 with Overwhelm, and that is good enough alone. You know, as long as ECL is existing in the game, as long as ECL is available for us to play, this guy is going to be at the top of many lists, sending out, you know, everyone knows how strong a 7 attack Overwhelm is. We've been seeing Steadfast Battalion for a while in, you know, in a lot of decks. But Steadfast comes with a little bit of awkwardness because you need to make sure you have your leader on the board. This guy does not need the leader on the board. He just comes out for 7, just has this strong stat line, the 6 HP to keep him around. He's going to destroy the base, hitting it for 5 to 6 damage. And then not only that, but hey, aggro decks, he has an amazing when played ability. The when played ability on this guy is going to seal games. And yeah, destroying a resource is very difficult. It sets you back. But if you're winning the game, do you need your resources? You could just resource again next turn, or you could just win the game, and then it doesn't matter that you destroyed your resource. This guy is going to kill sentinels on the board and then, attack that little guy that the sentinel was protecting. It can also just hurt something, like hurt a big unit, deal 4 damage or 5 damage to it, and then make so you're not only you can kill it, but then you're also dealing an additional 5 damage to the base with the overwhelm. There's so many options that this guy is going to have. I think most aggro decks are going to be slotting 3 of them. I think most aggro decks are going to be going away from Steadfast Battalion for the consistency of Wrecker, because they don't need to worry about their leader being on the board. Yeah, this is the top of my list. For the honorable mention for red, I went with Ruthlessness. It was between this and the DL Blaster, but I think Ruthlessness won out for me because I'm a little biased. I am a mid-range lover and a mid-range player, and I think that Ruthlessness, first of all, it's 1 for 2 damage, which is just excellent in terms of curve and cost. 1 for 2 damage is so good. But then even further than that, if you are playing a mid-range deck and you want to control the board, being able to constantly damage your opponent's base while controlling the board, you're basically 2 for 1ing, because you're slowing down your opponent, slowing down their ability to damage your base, and then while simultaneously damaging their base. This card is going to be slotted in a ton of decks. It's going to find the biggest home in mid-range and control decks, of course, because it gets the most use when you're not attacking the base, which kind of takes it away from aggro. But in those decks, it is going to be pretty much the best card in the deck. You're going to want to see it and see it early. So next up for green, this again was difficult to do because I know that Timely Intervention is really hot right now, but I do think that there are other cards, and I think that Timely Intervention is great. I did want to mention it briefly because, it will be great in the aggro mirror. It will be great for mid-range and control decks to play the tempo game. Super late game, I don't know if all decks are going to slot it. I do think it's more useful in aggro mirrors, creating that tempo swing. And they don't care about trading the card in an aggro mirror if it helps them gain control of the board. And then likewise, I think mid-range and control decks are going to find a lot of use with Timely, because of just, again, the late game tempo swing that it can give you. But it's not going to get my number 1 slot. My number 1 slot is actually going to go to Echo, which may come as a surprise to some of you. And actually, this card caused a lot of heated discussion in my own playgroup as to whether or not he was even playable. But not only do I think he's playable, I think he's at the top of the list for green. Number 1, he's overstated for his cost. For 4 cost, you're getting a 4/4 Restore 2. I've said in previous videos that when you look at Restore 2, you have to think of it as almost like 2 power. It's not exactly 2 power because it doesn't give you the base pressure, but it is a 2 damage swing. So this guy is doing a total of a 6 damage swing whenever he attacks. 4 damage to whatever you want, and then healing 2 on your base. Everyone should know how strong Restore 2 is at this point. We know how strong it is. It is incredible. And to get this guy, to get Restore 2 on a 4-drop, on a 4/4, very, very strong. Then you have that when played ability. Now, the when played ability is what's causing the controversy, because the question is, can you use this ability? Well, first, let's think, is this ability good? So I don't want you to think of this as, you may think, oh, I don't want to discard a card from my hand for only 2 experience. The first thing is, experience is busted. We know experience is busted. We see that with Metal Ceremony. We see that with Wing Leader. There are many cards in the game that break because of experience. Experience is just crazy, crazy strong. It's just so strong. It's damage and it's saving your units, getting out of takedown range, getting out of open fire range. Experience is busted. So let's get that out of the way. So what Echo's ability is actually doing is it's turning a card from your hand to whatever the card is to a 0, give 2 experience to a unit. So is 0 give 2 experience to a unit good? Yeah, it's freaking amazing. Okay, so that's that card. The card that exists when you play Echo, that is 0, give 2 experience to a unit, is spectacular. So we know it's a powerful ability. Can you use it? Well, getting 2 of the same name, of the same unit in your hand, 1 on the field, 1 in your hand, that's kind of difficult to do. It does happen a lot for me. But hey, there are tutor effects already in the game. We have Mon Mothma, we have Recruit, we have Emperor's Legion. We have many things in the game that allow us to tutor. There are draw engines in this game. We can see this. And then not only that, but as the game progresses and we print more cards, we get more cards that are the same name but different subtext. That's all going to count for this. If I have 2 Luke Skywalkers in my deck that are different subnames, I can discard either of them to get this 2 experience. So it's going to be excellent on release. it is going to be broken as the game continues. This guy is going to be a namesake in the meta. We are going to be seeing him a lot after the set releases. My runner-up for green is not going to Timely either. It is actually going to Take Captive. And the reason for this is green doesn't have hard removal. Green is lacking in hard removal right now, and it hurts sometimes. The best thing we have, villains have OB, which is hard removal. It is limited sometimes. If your opponent has a lot of shields or they just have big booties on them, OB can feel bad sometimes, although it is spectacular against aggro decks. We know why, them going wide. But as far as like green just spot removing something, that doesn't exist in the game right now. Strike True ain't great, okay? But Take Captive is actually giving green something that it doesn't have currently, which is why I think it is going to be just so impactful to the meta. Green decks are going to be able to decide between, actually a fair amount of removal cards and actually have a choice with the removal cards with this in the game. And the other thing about it is there's no restriction on, that we saw the yellow card that has a restriction per the cost. There's no restriction on this. So you can do a lot of interesting things where you have shielded units, protected units. The big thing is you don't want to get that unit defeated, so they get their capture card back. You could do a lot of tricks with this and steal a big unit with a small unit with Take Capture. There's a lot of interesting plays you can do with it, making it even more powerful. Now, closing out here with blue. Blue is probably the color that I have the most played games with. I played a lot of blue and a lot of the different blue cards. I love blue. That's why I'm giving the #1 slot to Razor Crest. This thing is so powerful. I can't overstate how powerful it is. Again, overstated for its cost. We have a 3/4 with Restore 2. If you just kind of pretend that's 2 power, I know it's not exactly 2 power, but Restore 2 is so strong, guys, so strong. The 5 damage swing this thing is going to do is going to be huge. Now, if you want to compare it to System Patrol Craft, you can, which is where things get really interesting when you start comparing it to System Patrol Craft, because System Patrol Craft has Sentinel. Well, this thing actually kind of has Sentinel, because if you're facing an aggro or a mid-range deck, they are not going to let you have that Restore 2. They are going to kill that unit as fast as possible. So it deserves an answer. It demands an answer, which is it's like pseudo Sentinel. But even more so in the matchups where the Sentinel doesn't matter if you're lane dodging and you're going in the space and they don't have any space units, well, then you just have this 5 damage swing every turn. Amazing. So then let's talk about the other ability that this has, which is return an upgrade from your discard pile to your hand. You're going to be able to do crazy combos with this. Equipment decks are just craving that consistency because it's so easy for your opponent to 2-for-1 you when you play an equipment-based deck. It's so easy for your opponent to traitorous you, and then you have to do crazy things to destroy your own unit and upgrades. There's a lot of bad stuff that can happen with upgrade decks, and seeing the ability for us to easily recur upgrades is just going to create amazing upgrade decks. They're going to be huge in the meta. This is an amazing unit, and that's the big thing with Razor Crest. This is an amazing unit by itself. The fact that it gets an upgrade back, it takes it into like S tier. This is going to be so strong for all equipment decks. Luke, Chirrut, we're going to be seeing them come on strong. For my runner-up card for blue, we are going to go with Unexpected Escape. I love the versatility of this card. This card, for one, exhausts any unit, which is incredibly powerful late game. If you've ever been late game and staring at, a late game Vader with a lightsaber or a Devastator, a Relentless, an Avenger, a Home One, all of these big late game units, being able to tap down one of them for 1 resource is incredible. And then late game, it also can be used to save one of your captured units. It's an incredible amount of versatility with this card. You can use it aggressively. You can use it defensively. Just so many options with this for only 1 resource. We're going to be seeing this card in a lot of decks. So that is it. That is my top cards for the colored aspects of the set that we've seen so far. I'm sure we're going to be getting more cards and more powerful cards, but I wanted to just, there have been so many previews coming out, I wanted to give my take on what I think are some of the stronger ones that we've been seeing so far, and I can't wait to get my hands on set 2 of this game. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe for all the best gaming content and guides, and as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming for weekly updates on Star Wars Unlimited.